Artificial intelligence. It's the catchphrase that just won't seem to go away. Unfortunately, much of the conversation around AI tends to be between technical people and other technical people. Well, what about lay folks? What about regular folks who recognize the pervasiveness of AI in society already and they want to be more producers than only consumers? What's out there for them? That's where I come into play. Hi, I'm Lawrence. Online, I go by Lawrence Decodes. And in this three-part video series, we're going to take a shallow dive into artificial intelligence and gear it specifically for non-technical people. Now, if you're already technical, if you're a developer or in the developer world whatsoever, you're welcome to stick around and support, but quite honestly, you may not extract a ton of new information here. This video series is specifically made for our non-technical folks who just want to know what the heck is AI and how can I use it safely in my life. That being said, let's get started. And just to reiterate, this video series is for complete beginners, no experience required whatsoever. But I do assure you, by the end of this three-part series, you will be a competent AI user, able to get more productivity in your life for a variety of tasks and do it in a safe manner. Now, for real, let's get started. So one great place to start is with the definition. What is artificial intelligence, or AI as it's called? For that matter, what is intelligence? Well, without digging too deeply into Webster, you and I can agree that intelligence is that ability we find in all living organisms to take in information, to process it or make decisions about it, and then to take actions that are in that organism's best favor based on information. Then we can go a step further and call it higher intelligence based on an increased ability to take in wider varieties of input, increased ability to make even better decisions, and an increased ability to take better actions for the organism's benefit. A wide variety of intelligence we find within the animal kingdom and the living kingdom in general. So the only thing that makes it artificial is when we go from a living being to something made mechanically, such as a computer. We'll call that artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is simply a simulation of the natural intelligence we find in the living kingdom. And it can be used for a wide variety of purposes, some of which we'll get into here shortly. From problem solving to automation to even just putting in your resume and your job description of choice into an LLM chatbot and having it give you an automated AI response about the match and what can be done to the resume to make you a better applicant for the job. These things and more can all be done with artificial intelligence. Now, there's three phrases that tend to get used interchangeably, but they're actually slightly different, each one being a subset of the other. Artificial intelligence, or AI, machine learning, or ML, and then deep learning, all right? So let's get into each of those. Artificial intelligence, we just talked about that. It is the computer simulating human intelligence as best as we can get it. That's a very broad umbrella term, hence the fact that it has at least these two subsets. When we get down to machine learning, and as you look at the text there, you'll see it's talking about, hey, can we have a computerized system that's able to learn from new data without being programmed specifically to do so? That's a step up from just generally working with artificial intelligence, not AGI, but generally working with artificial intelligence. We're going to call that machine learning, learning from new data. Again, looking at the text there, you'll see it's referring to training data and making predictions. So if I were to talk to you and say 1, 2, 3, 4, you probably heard 5 without me even asking. It's just the natural thing that comes next. Well, that's a gross approximation of what happens with machine learning. We take a very large amount of data, large sets of data, and then, for instance, with an LLM, a large language model, which we'll talk more about later, we have a text input, for instance. Hey, what is the answer to why the chicken crossed the road? And so it'll take that text and mathematically map it to all of the text that it knows that it deems to be relevant and make predictions about what the next words should be, just like you were able to accurately predict 5 comes after 1, 2, 3, 4, or if I were to say hickory dickory, you probably heard doc. The same way your brain just kind of automatically does that, we can program computers to do the same thing. And the larger amounts of data they have to be trained on, the better they get at predicting what the next words should be. We look at it as prompts, input into, for instance, again, an LLM like a chatbot, and a responses, but it doesn't just have to be that, but that's a good simplification for now. So artificial intelligence, subset machine learning, subset from that deep learning. Now deep learning is where we're getting the closest approximation to actually how our human brains are structured and how they work, right? We're dealing with much larger sets of data, better processing power, and better decision-making ability. And so with deep learning, when you think about things like image recognition, how does a Tesla know this is a person and that's a stoplight? Or any sort of recognition of that level, that will be dealt with deep learning, right? Much larger data sets and much higher compute. So artificial intelligence, AI, machine learning, ML, and deep learning. But I don't think anybody calls that DL. Now, as much as we talk about artificial intelligence in 2025 and beyond, the fact is it goes way back to the 50s. Alan Turing wrote his paper in 1950, and one of the very first sentences in the opening paragraph asked the question, can machines think? Can computers even think? And that was what he was testing in his Turing test that he did even in 1949. They call it the imitation game, where a human interrogator would ask questions of a human and a computer. They didn't know which one was which, and if the computer could trick the interrogator, so to speak, it was considered to have passed the test. So they were fascinated with how close can we get to human responses and human intelligences with computers even as early as 1949. Now, the natural question you might be thinking as a non-technical person is, why are y'all doing that? Why would anybody want to do that? You already said, Lawrence, that we have the highest expression of intelligence, short of the divine, and so why make a computer do what we can do already? Well, the answer to that, I want you to broaden your understanding of technology, because technology is, of course, much, much more than computers. It is literally every advancement that we make using scientific means to make our lives a little better. So today, yes, we're talking about artificial intelligence and the race towards AGI, artificial general intelligence, and robots and self-driving cars. That's what we're talking about today. But before, it was just the first personal computer. And before, there was a mainframe computer. And we could go far back enough, it was an analytical machine by Charles Babbage, or the cotton gin, or the wheel. All of these are technology advancements, something that man has put together to make his life a little better. So the highest use of AI is as something to supplement and better the lives of humans, the ones who have the original I. Now let's hit a few terms right quick that you might hear in conversations about artificial intelligence and some easy definitions for you to understand what's going on. You certainly might hear the word algorithms. That is nothing more than the step-by-step instructions for the AI system to follow, but algorithms are not restricted to AI. Any program, any computer program that is designed to do a certain task in a certain series of steps, those steps will be considered the algorithm, all right? It's like the plan in computer language, okay? The next one, data. You know what data is. Data in artificial intelligence terms, that's the fuel that gives us all the capabilities we have with AI, in particular large language models, LLMs. They take a ton of data, large amounts of language, and they're able to model that language in mathematical terms. And then when you query, when you ask questions of the model based on all that data, it's able to give you those predictive responses we talked about earlier. Data is the fuel for our AI fire. And last but not least, neural networks. I'm not going to do a deep rabbit hole with you on neural networks. Just understand it is much like the neural pathways of the brain. That is what it's closely simulating. Remember our hierarchy earlier? AI, ML, and then DL, the deep learning, with those neural networks. It is those computer systems, hardware and software, that are closest as possible simulating the brain cells, the dendrites, and all of the connections that happen in the brain that facilitate learning and problem solving and coming up with new decisions. The simulation of that in electronic terms are called neural networks. Up to now, we've dealt with some theoretical examples of artificial intelligence. Now let's deal with some practical ones you might see in day-to-day life. Starting with chatbots. Now, I know sometimes you like them, sometimes not so much. But chatbots are very often powered by artificial intelligence. And a simple way of thinking about it is like this. A company, let's say you own your own rental car company. You can get a program or a series of programs that are artificially intelligent capable, and they've been trained on understanding natural language. That's a very large set of data in order to do that. And then you give it prompts or local training for all of your inventory or your rules and regulations. You might give it access to a calendar. You give it access to all of the information, for instance, that a customer service agent would need to know. And then when a person interacts in the little text field on your website, your chatbot, your program can access the knowledge of language as well as your local data set. And that's how AI chatbots run. Unfortunately, I don't see them going away, but hopefully they do get better with more enhanced data models and more enhanced data capabilities from how they respond to customers. The next one would be self-driving cars. Now, we talked about image recognition earlier. And remember our sets and our subsets, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. You definitely have deep learning going on with automated cars, right? Self-driving cars. You have to be able to recognize images, be able to account for motion, and so many other things. The map of wherever they are, origins, destinations, algorithms for destination finding, lots going on at once. Definitely a lot of deep learning going on there. And then medical diagnoses. This is one I am super excited about. Let's think together, even in a non-technical way. If an individual doctor knows this much information about medical history and medical diagnoses and diseases and cures, we can take an artificial intelligence and 100x that to know 100 times more than an individual fantastic doctor what diagnoses and what pattern recognition can go into it to come up with new cures and new approaches to solving diseases. This is one area that I'm super excited about when it comes to artificial intelligence applications. So far, I've been focusing on the technical aspects, the theoretical aspects, but I'm sure you're wondering at this point, okay, how do I get started using some of this artificial intelligence in my life? Well, if you're a technical person or a developer, you'll probably start with courses like on Coursera, edX, or Udacity, or you can go directly to websites like Kaggle that specialize specifically in artificial intelligence learning. But as a non-developer, a non-technical person, I would highly suggest you get started using your favorite LLM. Now, understand when it comes to benchmarks, the different performance metrics we use to compare one to another. Unless you are programming with them or need time-sensitive data, much of those benchmarks are largely noise, believe it or not. You just want to be able to get into using one chatbot, understand how to use it well enough so you can get answers and responses that you need. LLM stands for Large Language Model, and with that model in the background, there's a chatbot, a user interface or a UI that will allow you to input text, to input a prompt, have the computer, the programs, do some processing based on natural language understanding and the wide array of data it's been trained on, and then produce a response for you. Now, you've probably heard a lot about developers using chatbots to produce code for them, or even developers being replaced by chatbots that produce code. But it's not limited to code. It can literally be anything. You can ask it history. When I say it, I'm talking about whatever chatbot you choose to use. You can ask it about history facts, movie facts. You can ask for ideas. You can ask it to plan a trip. Literally anything that you would normally Google or search for on TripAdvisor or any other research-oriented website, or even ask a friend, as long as it's not too personal. You can put those queries into the text field of your favorite chatbot and get responses. Now, I always tell people, don't take the responses to be truth. Take them to be ideas for consideration. One of my favorite tech mentors, Scott Hanselman, said when it comes to code, don't treat it like a senior engineer, treat it like an over-eager junior engineer. It's going to give you a very quick, authoritative response, but it might be completely wrong. You still have to have the real intelligence to gauge the level of quality from that artificial intelligence response. So get started today. There's tons of them out there. You don't have to pay it first. Go with one of the free tiers and see how it goes. So the next, very natural next question might be, where's all this artificial intelligence stuff headed? Great question. The answer is, who knows? As far as we can push these models to achieve more and more meaningful results to human, you will continue to see more and more advancements. I think a few areas that you'll definitely see is increased automation. We talked about those chatbots for rental car places and things like that. I think you're going to see a lot more of that, but the language will be more and more natural. They'll be able to facilitate even booking or getting refunds and things of that nature because they will have so much data available to them. Increased automation goes for additional self-driving vehicles, maybe flying ones, maybe not, we'll see. But automation with robots in factories, robots that go into dangerous areas like mines, or even moon rovers or Mars rovers. I can see much of this happening through automation, all powered by artificial intelligence. The next area would definitely be in healthcare. I mentioned an example earlier. There are tons of other examples that medical professionals are looking forward to artificial intelligence being able to process a large amount of data that it can and use pattern recognition and come up with other ways of helping humans. I'm really looking forward to that as one of the future areas. One of the last areas I'm really excited about is personalized experiences, whatever you're engaging in. So not to give Minority Report, but imagine going and being able to actually be served coupons that you need when you walk into a restaurant or walk into a grocery store, or be able to see ads that you actually want to see when you turn on the TV, or even in gaming, right? We always pick on NPCs because of how robotic they are. What if instead of picking a level, beginner, medium, novice, expert, what if you just play the game? It always starts you at a certain level,
but then the NPCs learn from you how good you are and they get better accordingly, or they learn your moves and proclivities. In other words, the game gets better progressively as it gets more data from your actions in it. I think this and more is all part of our future with artificial intelligence. So there we have it. That ends the first video of my three-part series teaching AI to non-technical people. As I said before, the sky's the limit with how far artificial intelligence will go and how far we'll be able to use it. My encouragement for you is to get on board now at whatever level makes sense and understand artificial intelligence altogether is another tool. It's a level of compute, but it's a technology tool. And just like the archaic examples I mentioned earlier of the wheel, the cotton gin, and the Babbage machine, this is a new tool to enhance our productivity and make life even better. It can be used to any degree that we want to use it, so my encouragement to you is jump on board now, find what level makes sense for you, and let's enjoy this ride and journey with AI. See you in the next one.